Smile with gusto at first attempts. Post 33. We often cringe when we look at our first efforts, our first oil painting, our first poem, our first published book, our first song, the first designs we made, our first stage performance, and the list can go on. Why do we do that? We can easily look at the first attempts of others and tell them they did well and encourage them. When we look at our first own efforts, we apply a harsher treatment. Our inner critic is always at work, and that is an uncomfortable, automatic, inner evaluated reality we cannot live without, unfortunately. However, if we could mute those impulses for a moment and replace self-scrutiny with a positive or a more accepting glance, we may arrive at gratitude, perhaps. I am sure you must have heard stories of people who were not at all interested in learning to paint or learning to play a particular instrument. But through a series of fortunate events, they discovered they had a remarkable talent for something they did not want to do at first. We often envy these folks because they were destined for stardom. I think they are in the minority. Most of us learn the hard way. We have a talent or an interest, but it is perhaps not that remarkable. But we try repeatedly until something happens that appeals to us, and then the great resolution to become successful somehow grabs us if we persist. I watched the documentary on Ralph Lauren on a flight. I could not sleep, and I learned how his brand started. It was not an easy road, but he started somewhere with just one sample tie, if I remember correctly. We may not want to build a brand, but we are surely trying to get better at what we are doing. Therefore, all the more reason to acknowledge that we respect the start of our respective journeys. Because for most of us who are still trying, persisting tenaciously sometimes, there has been a happy harvest of successes which followed our first mistakes. If we look back with the accepting glance, these successes may not yet have given us loads of money, but they gave us the honey of contentment, satisfaction, and a greater measure of self-knowledge. I did not show that much talent as a child for the arts, but I knew I wanted to be a visual artist in some way or another. This was one of the first spontaneous watercolor sketches I made when I was still at school. I smile when I look at it now, because it is free and void of learned technique. I made 3 sketches in one day as part of our weekend art homework. I learned then that I could not completely control watercolor. It is a medium that requires a good measure of self-knowledge and happy accidents. Our first efforts opened the door to a hunger for discovery and learning. The knowledge that not everything can be controlled, because arty moments often overshadow our intentions and bypass our brain, is added to our consciousness. We should treasure our first efforts. They affirm our belief that we could somehow make it happen. make a cup of coffee or tea, and let us look at the photos of our first attempts together and smile a broad smile, seeing that we have progressed a mile. Let us think of how we have built on those first efforts, often with self-doubt and uncertainty. But little miracles started to sprout and bloom along the arty, rugged road. We have each indeed acquired a personal brand of artworks, be it in a portfolio, in an anthology, in an album of songs, for example. And even if they may be destined to remain only in our personal domains, we still smile and say, I started here, smile please, and see how I have grown. My techniques improved, I took better photographs, a friend helped me here, and then I learned that if you ...